After the New Criticism offers a thorough examination of the evolution of literary theory from 1957 to 1977, and its ongoing influence on contemporary criticism. In the first part of the book, Lentricchia delves into the key philosophical influences on literary theory during this period, including existentialism, phenomenology, structuralism, and post-structuralism. Through critical analysis of thinkers like Sartre, Husserl, Nietzsche, Heidegger, and Derrida, he explores how their ideas have shaped the work of literary theorists such as Frank Kermode, Wallace Stevens, Georges Poulet, and Roland Barthes. The book's underlying thesis, reflected in its title, is that the Romantic and Kantian heritage that informed T.S. Eliot and the New Critics remains a significant force in contemporary literary theory. Lentricchia argues that even works critical of the New Criticism, like Northrop Frye's Anatomy of Criticism, still exhibit traces of new critical thought. He contends that Jonathan Culler, in his Structuralist Poetics, inadvertently incorporates new critical assumptions into his characterization of structuralism, making it more accessible to an American audience. For example, Lentricchia criticizes Culler for maintaining the new critical notion that the properties distinguishing types of discourse reside within discourse itself. In contrast, Lentricchia asserts that structuralism posits that discourse's properties are contingent on structured modes of reading that constitute discourse. In the second part of the book, Lentricchia examines the thought of four contemporary American critics: Murray Krieger, E.D. Hirsch, Paul de Man, and Harold Bloom. Each critic exemplifies different themes identified in the first part of the book, further demonstrating the ongoing influence of Romantic and Kantian traditions in contemporary literary theory. Lentricchia presents a provocative argument in After the New Criticism, contending that new critical isolationist and formalist assumptions persist within American post-structuralism. He points out that according to Derrida and his followers, texts deconstruct themselves by employing rhetorical devices that undermine their apparent messages. This leads to constant paradoxes or aporia in interpretation, where what the text says cannot be equated with its intended meaning. As a result, texts are seen to have a life of their own, with meanings that are not fixed and can exist independently of historical authority or constraint. Lentricchia asserts that post-structuralism paradoxically brings us back to the new critical notion of text autonomy, where meaning transcends time and is not bound by historical authority. He criticizes Yale Derridians, including Paul de Man, Jeffrey Hartman, and J. Hillis Miller, for treating interpretation as a formalist game, focused solely on analyzing rhetorical devices and their subversion of apparent meaning. According to Lentricchia, these critics repeatedly allegorized texts from the perspective of aporia, leading to predictable interpretations. However, Lentricchia also acknowledges another aspect of Derrida's thought that aligns more closely with the ideas of Michel Foucault. He interprets Derrida as viewing the sign as a trace structure, subject to archaeological investigation similar to Foucault's historical analysis. In this view, deconstructive criticism reveals underlying structures of values and meanings imposed on texts by historical factors, such as language history, social and political institutions, and the unconscious. Lentricchia suggests that the future literary critic may adopt a historical approach akin to Foucault, becoming a historian of ideas who uncovers the networks of relations responsible for systems of power. Through analyzing the aporia in texts, critics can reveal the difference in power systems at a given time, shedding light on the historical forces shaping textual meaning. Lentricchia's book is undoubtedly a challenging read, given its dense and intricate subject matter. However, despite its difficulty, the book is well written, witty, and, for the most part, lucid. This achievement is notable, considering the complex ideas of thinkers like Nietzsche, Heidegger, and Derrida that the book navigates. Rather than providing a straightforward survey of recent trends in literary theory, Lentricchia's approach is critical in style. He begins by offering a sympathetic reading of the theories under discussion, situating them within his broader critical framework. Then, he proceeds to offer detailed critical assessments. For instance, Lentricchia credits E. D. Hirsch for anticipating the Derridian insight that there is no clear dichotomy between ordinary referential discourse and the organic discourse of poetry. However, he also highlights the difficulties inherent in Hirsch's solution, such as the reinstatement of authorial will as a source for determinate linguistic meaning outside the text itself. Similarly, Lentricchia praises Harold Bloom's theory of poetic influence, seeing it as the closest recent approach to the Foucaultian/Derridian historicism he advocates. Yet, he notes a formalist or anti-historicist element in Bloom's approach, particularly in his conception of influence as a relation between the poet in a poet and his precursors. Despite this, Lentricchia suggests that Bloom's method could be expanded to include consideration of minor writers and contemporary networks of repression, aligning more closely with post-structuralist historicist criticism. Throughout the book, Lentricchia implicitly argues for the value of this kind of criticism, while implicitly critiquing the isolationist and aestheticist tendencies of the new criticism. By engaging deeply with the theories of his chosen critics and offering both praise and critique, Lentricchia contributes to a nuanced understanding of contemporary literary theory.